Thanks again, guys, for joining us. Today, we're joined by Cam Guthrie. Cam's been the mayor of the city of Guelph since 2010. He was reelected in 2014. And sorry, he was reelected. You were reelected in 2018. So prior to that, you were a counselor. And then before that, if we go far enough back, you were a licensed insurance broker and an entrepreneur for 16 years. And you used to play drums, and I hope you still do. So, Cam, thank you for joining us today on our Tuesday talk. I know you're a busy guy taking care of Guelph, but glad to have you on.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. I was yes, I'm still playing the drums every now and then. So it's
Right on.
yeah, it's good to sometimes you have to vent. So you have to play the drums really loud, right?
Just smash those
That's
drums.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Harris?
Yeah, I mean, I could, and I was about to say, I can imagine when you're saying you got to vent the last few years, especially being a mayor with COVID and everything, have to be kind of a difficult one. And just to kick things off, then, I guess, what in your, I guess, day-to-day work changed the most before and after COVID? Like, what's kind of changed, or how has your job description changed, and what are you looking at now that you weren't looking at before?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would think that, oh boy, a few things come to mind, I guess. The first one would be you always want to be in charge of trying to keep a community safe, but
Yeah.
often that safety issue is defined as like crime in the municipality that you're in or in the city that you're in. You never think about safe under the context of a pandemic of a virus, and so you're definitely having to really shift your brain into that sort of newly defined role of keeping a community safe. And you sometimes think, from a mayor position, that you can explain things when it comes, and you can be knowledgeable when it comes to infrastructure or property taxes or building new city initiatives and things like that. But when it comes to a pandemic around a virus, you have to pretty quickly admit you're not an expert in this. And relying on your medical officer of health, relying on the hospital and the doctors and the scientists, is you just have to go there immediately. You can't know it all at all. You can't even pretend that you know it all. And so I think the last 2 years has been really it's been a real difficult time for a lot of people, and Guelph's gotten through it very, very well, because I think our community really kind of gathered around that. We're going to listen to our medical officer of health, our public health guidelines. We're gonna do what needs to be done. We're going to look after each other, and although difficult, that's why we're one of the most vaccinated cities in North America.
Yeah.
And we're just doing a really good job of taking care of each other. And the mayor's role is kind of the spokesperson. And as instead of being I almost said the spokesperson for we're building this building, or we're fixing this road, or the normal mayoral stuff, you all of a sudden became the spokesperson for medical and public health issues. Relaying that information that you're hearing from the experts to the public realm, so that everyone's kind of being kept in the loop and on side. So really, really interesting times from a communication point of view, engagement point of view, and we've done well. And it's not because of me; it's because of the community pulling together.
And I found, like, in my humble opinion, like, for a lot of our elected representatives, when everybody's on lockdown, and they're kind of told to stay at home, I think it's been some of the hardest times for our representatives, because they're working full time, and they're not only just working full time, but it's a lot of it is, I mean, if there's something wrong with a road, you need to build out something, there's infrastructure issues, whatever it is, it's still pretty much in your hands, in that you're working with the community to make a decision, but you're not really making any kind of decision where Corona is going and where COVID's going to spread, and you're kind of taking messages from other people, and you're just kind of relaying the message, and then people kind of shoot the messenger. So it's like
Yeah.
there's been a lot of shots fired for
Yeah.
messengers in the last
I'm
couple of weeks.
surprised I even made it this far in the last 2 years with the shots fired. But yeah,
A lot of banging of drums on the.
you
Off
explained
time.
that well. Back to that whole spokesperson role. So I think part of the last 2 years has also been an opportunity to engage with people almost from an educational level. And I don't mean that like I'm smarter than somebody else. What I mean is, people would say, why are you closing my business down? Well, it's not me that's closing your business down. In fact, no mayor at all has the authority anywhere to close a business down. It's the province that's determined to close the business down. Why are you making me wear a mask? That's the medical officer of health. That's not me. But mayors are the closest conduit to the people. So I'm the one, or a mayor is the one you run into in the grocery store buying milk. The one, going for a walk in the park. So, the provincial level of government representatives, although they maybe were working from home some of the times, they're removed. Federal government representatives, they're removed. Ottawa, Toronto area. So the mayors they're the closest politician. And so you hear it. You hear it. You hear the good. You really hear the bad. You hear the concerns. And you have to sort of walk people through, well, this is my jurisdiction, and this is the provincial jurisdiction, and this is the federal jurisdiction. And there's that sort of education moment that have had to have those conversations a lot over the last couple of years, so people understand where the decisions are coming from. That does not mean that I don't care or I don't have empathy about whatever the issue is, but it's been an opportunity to kind of explain where decisions are coming from.
Yeah. No, and I think I've had tons of conversations with people as well where they're like, it's so and so's fault. I'm like, that's not. I mean, everyone has a jurisdiction. You got to operate within that jurisdiction. You have like boundaries, and nobody could just kind of go in and do whatever they want. And this, especially with the situation we've had, which has been unprecedented. Like we've never in our lives had a lockdown. Forget about a lockdown for 2 years. It's difficult, and it's not necessarily one person's decision. If it was that easy, actually, it would be a little bit more scary, because that's more of a dictatorship. But but like it's good that we have committees and we have different people kind of specializing in certain things that can then make those decisions, because they're in a better position to see what's going on.
Yeah, and I think where sometimes people got upset over the last couple of years, and could even still be upset today, is as much as they maybe would understand the jurisdictional divide or the boundaries that are in place of what a mayor can do and what a mayor can't do, they were still looking for me, or any mayor, to be a voice for the issue.
Yeah.
So part of my role was, and still is advocacy. So there was several times where there was programs from the provincial government, as an example, to help out businesses that were shut down, and they could access grants or some money to help them keep afloat, and where businesses were getting denied. And what, my battery's about to go down. I don't know why it went so fast there. I'll quickly answer this question, then I'm gonna run, and I'm gonna get a quote.
All right.
The issue was that even though it was not in my jurisdiction, it was still important for me to then take that person's issue and advocate to the upper levels of government for that individual. So it wasn't me about like, hey, not my problem, hey, not my department, and then walking away. It was explaining, but then there's still sometimes a role for me to speak up and take that conversation to where it needs to be. And with that, I'm going to get my cord, or we're going to...
All right, man.
Sorry, everyone.
So good. Yeah, I mean, Harris, it's one of those things where, he's had to trade in his golden shovel and ribbon cutting scissors and deal with so many different issues. I know him and I had chatted a little bit when it first happened. I think I texted Cam and I was like, man, dude, what do you think about what's going on? And it was one of those things, like you probably remember back in February of 2020 or March or whatever. We just didn't know. It was just this ominous sort of like cloud of how long is this going to go on? How deadly is it? And I just knew that Cam definitely had his work cut out for him in the next little while. Like, I wouldn't have in a million years thought it would have been, 2 years on and we're just taking masks off as of Monday. But yeah, it's I think definitely his second term as mayor has been a lot more difficult than the first one. And we talked about this off camera where Cam is very active on social media, right? Like every platform he's on there. And that's sort of a testament how out there he is to be sort of like that spokesperson and to advocate for people and a sounding board too. But it's also, he's got a lot of targets aimed at him because he's so easily accessible. And anytime something is posted, you get both sides of the coin when people are voicing their opinions and concerns. But I think like Guelph hit 90% vaccination status or something.
95.
Were you like walking around and just jabbing people like personally? Because I mean, it's pretty impressive. That's 95%. That's
well, good. Sorry about that plug thing.
That's all
but,
good.
I think in my first answer, I might have said like it's about the community and about us all pulling together.
Yeah.
And I'm so out of shape. The last 2 years has made me out of shape. I can't run to get a quarter.
It's the same with me.
But it really was, obviously the leadership of our medical officer of health, and just everyone pulling together. There was no drama between those within leadership roles, mayor, council.
You guys are all on the same team. You're all working towards the same. Yeah.
We're all like, we're there. We're unified. There's no daylight in between any of us. We're there. We're doing our thing. Right. So it really, I think helped because I looked at other cities where there was some friction and fractured sort of leadership around this issue, and it spills out into the community and creates more fractures and more friction, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, overall, I really loved how Canada and Canadians handled the entire pandemic, because I feel like there was a sense of community. Everybody did kind of come together. 2-year lockdown. I mean, I haven't, it's unprecedented anywhere in the world for sure. Right. People were patient. Right. And at the end, we did have that convoy and everything, but I don't see that as a bad thing. That I do feel like that just means that Canadians will work, but then we also want to be heard. So we have a functioning democracy where people can participate. So it's like, and then there's just rules and everything. There wasn't a lot of bickering from the beginning as to what should be done and it was pretty together. And then people started kind of voicing their opinions and we got out of it. I feel like it was done in terms of a democracy. I think it was done like really nicely. I don't know. I felt like Canadians handled it really well.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would agree with you on that. I think, there's no manual for this.
Yeah.
Like there's like, people needed to give, and me too, needed to give grace and some empathy and some patience. And as it wanes on and on and on, that can start to go away and can get frustrating. But you know what, overall, we had to do what we had to do to try to protect lives. And we just have to look out for each other. And as much as, we're speaking today on the second day where no masks are required in Ontario but the virus is still out there, and there's still a percentage that, aren't vaccinated. There's still a percentage that are maybe vaccinated but have compromises in their own health, and we have to think about them. And so we still gotta, we're out of all the restrictions, but we still have to remember it's out there, and I think we need to still continue that empathy and grace and looking out for each other as we try to manage it now moving forward, because it's just it's going to be here. It's going to be here, and we're going to have to manage it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. And like you said, it's just at this point, let's figure out the best way to manage it. Let's shift gears a little bit, Cam, and talk a bit about the real estate market in Guelph, because obviously, things have been incredibly heated. I'm out here in Kitchener-Waterloo, which isn't too far from you, and we've seen a lot of movement. Still bidding wars. Like my neighbor just sold his house for $300,000 over asking. Crazy bidding war. They're holding off on offers. And what's going on in Guelph, and what are you guys doing to make housing more affordable?
Yeah, so we're seeing the same type of things here, really lots of bidding wars. And boy, there's a lot to say about this. I started to see even before the pandemic some issues in regards to the housing market here. In fact, I did a speech probably 4 years ago. I think I was at the home builders dinner or something, and I said, what's happening is what's called you drive till you qualify. So what was happening is the GTA area, they weren't able to start to afford homes, and especially families. And so they start driving down the 401, and they can't afford GTA, they can't afford Mississauga, they maybe start to afford things in Milton, then all of a sudden Guelph. And all of a sudden that $1 million or million and some odd dollar home in Toronto, you can get the same thing here for 600,000 at the time.
Right.
And then we started to see that migration out of the GTA area into Guelph. And what was interesting was we started to see it too, because all day two-way go from a transportation perspective is coming to Guelph. So the all day two-way go train system, we already have 4 trains a day already, but it's going to be coming all day back and forth from Toronto to Guelph to Kitchener-Waterloo. And so I think a lot of people were thinking, like, you know what, I can live in Guelph and I could work in Toronto because all day two-way go is coming this way. And so people were starting to come this way anyways before the real start of the hit of COVID. And Guelph is that city that lots of people want to be at. I mean, I'm not just saying that because I'm the mayor. Everyone thinks I have to say that. It is a great city. It's a medium-sized city that has the big city amenities, entertainment, the parks, the trails, secondary schools, university and college, and just a great work-life balance here. And so people want to be here. I would say that to answer your last part of the question, though, about like what are we doing in regards to trying to help with the housing prices. Well, I think a lot of it, not all of it, is supply. We have to start getting more supply into the market. That's not going to be the silver bullet to fix the problem, but supply is there. So back to the kind of COVID discussion about jurisdictions and different things at different levels of government. It is an all 3 level of government issue, 100% when it comes to our housing issues. What can we do as municipalities? I think we need to start looking into ways that we can make sure that processes are faster. Absolutely. I think we need to figure out how to better communicate to the public in our cities about the need for infill projects and intensification types of projects, or projects that are going to be a little bit higher in stories and not all single detached homes everywhere. And we need to communicate that better to the people so they understand when that 4-story building gets started to be built, that's because we have to put people somewhere. We have to be able to have that type of development in our community. It's everyone, and you know what? It's not just three levels of government. If I could just add one more thing, it's the private sector too. It's the development community too. It's even the nonprofit sector. Like we all have to sort of work together to try to figure out how to get housing done faster, and to help with supply, and hopefully that will start to help. But there are financial levers at either the feds, maybe the province, that can also try to help, that we have no control over from a municipality as well. But we're just, lastly, I'll just say this: we're about 150-ish thousand people right now in Guelph, and by law, the province is going to make us 205,000 people by
Damn.
2021.
I remember when I went to Guelph, Cam. That's when you and I first met, and there was like 50,000 people in that town at the time.
That's
like crazy.
More than that, maybe, I don't know, maybe 90.
Yeah, I just know like the place to be was the Great Canadian Bagel. That was it.
Yes.
But things have definitely changed, like coming through that town, and and I know there's obviously different levels of government that all have to work together. Sorry, it looks like my camera shut off. 1 second here. And we're back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I don't think it's not fair for one level of government to point fingers at another one. It's better to just admit we all have a role to play. We got to figure it out. And I will give kudos to the provincial government and to the feds. They're trying their best on this too. They've created task forces, and they're listening to municipalities and listening to people to try to figure out what we need to do. And so it's important to admit that we have that role to play as well.
Yeah, for sure. Has Guelph been participating? I know when I was living in Toronto and then out here in KW, there's the Laneway Housing Project and tiny homes and so forth. What's going on in Guelph with that? Like, I know it's like, obviously it's a drop in the bucket when it comes to supply. But what are you guys doing, if anything?
Yes, so actually kudos to the provincial government again. They mandated it across the province that lane homes, garden suites, tiny homes, that type of thing had to be sort of allowed. I'm paraphrasing obviously, but you can basically have 3 units on one piece of property now. So you could have, like, I'm in a detached home, so I could live upstairs, that's 1 unit. I could have a basement apartment, that's the 2nd unit. And then I can build a detached structure in my backyard, and that can be the 3rd unit. And so the tiny home type of thing was zoned and approved in Guelph almost probably a year and a half or so ago. And so the only kind of things that we had to discuss in Guelph is, what's the setback for that structure from the neighbors? What's the height going to be? Those types of things. But the allowance of it had to be uniform across all municipalities. And so I believe, last time I heard a couple months ago, I think there's about 7 or 8 that are already built or underway.
Oh, okay.
In the last year and a bit. And I've actually taken a tour of one of them. And I'll tell you straight up. I'll tell all your listeners straight up. I don't care.
He's gone rogue, ladies and gentlemen.
It's something I hear almost every other day now, that people are thinking about building them because of the housing crisis that we're in. My wife and I were thinking about it because I've got a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I have no idea where they're coming up with $140,000 to $50,000 as a down payment. I have no idea. So instead, that $150,000 can go into building another home in your backyard.
Right.
And maybe it becomes rental income. Maybe it becomes helping an in-law or a mother or a father that needs to live there, or kids. Like, there is, I think, going to be a big demand for these types of homes in the future.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. There's so many ways that this type of housing can help, right? Because from a qualifying perspective, it's not getting easier, it's getting harder to qualify for a mortgage. So these mortgage helpers can definitely help, right? You have additional rental income to help offset the carrying cost. Now, does that affect property taxes where you guys are? Like, if you put secondary building on. Is that, and how have you guys dealt with
Yeah,
that?
so property taxes are, I won't get into the weeds too much, but you know, there's always the budget of the city. So whatever it costs to run the city is the budget. And then that budget is dispersed over different types of assessed properties, whether that's
Right.
residential assessed or industrial or commercial. And so the assessment of properties is determined by the municipal
Impact.
property assessment company.
Yeah.
So those have been frozen the last couple of years, but they're getting unfrozen this year. So there's some concern everywhere about like, oh, you know, my house is going to be reassessed at $250,000 or $300,000 more than what it was last time. And then there's that additional fear that, well, does that mean that my taxes are going to go up the same because my assessed value has gone up the same? And it's about the property. And to answer the correct question, no, it won't. It doesn't mean your property taxes are going up the same if your assessed value goes up the same, because it's still the dispersed budget across the city. But if you do have a tiny home on your property, that obviously will increase the assessed value, which will then be determined, you know, at the next go around for assessments and for the property taxes. But it's the same if you know, add a second floor to your home or redo your basement or whatever. I mean, it's all about the assessed value that comes from the province.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, and I think that's fair too. I didn't know it was being unfrozen this year, so that's interesting. We'll see what happens.
This